In today's video, we're going to learn how to build a pretty sweet animation in SwiftUI, and that animation is from a menu icon, commonly known as a hamburger icon, to a close button. Before we get into things, start by dropping a like down below, hit subscribe, let's open up Xcode, and let's create a brand new SwiftUI project. So we're going to call this cool menu animation. Just make sure you've got Swift and SwiftUI selected here, and I'm going to toss this onto my desktop. So first things first, some of you might have seen this animation in various places around the internet, and it is pretty cool to actually see, and more interesting than not actually. It's pretty easy to build as well. So the first thing I'm going to go and do here is get rid of all the stuff in our VStack. I'm also going to toss our preview on the right hand side here into dark mode, since it was a little more fun to work with dark mode here, so I'll go ahead and do that. And let's actually create the menu first. That seems to be the more important piece. So we're going to add a spacing of maybe 14 in here. And if you think of a menu icon, all it really is three rectangles vertically stacked on top of each other. So we already have the VStack, so we're already starting in a pretty good spot here. So let's do a rectangle, and I'm going to say this has a width of perhaps, let's do something like 64 and a height of 10. And essentially, we should be able to copy and paste these to have a total of 3 of them, and boom, we've got our icon there. So it's not the nicest looking, so let's do a little bit of cleanup here. Let's add a corner radius, and maybe let's do like 5, maybe that'll look nice, or let's do like 4 maybe. And let's just stick these onto these as well. And let's actually start talking about the animation. So what we want to do, if we think about the way that this icon will transition to a cross, right, this top rectangle and this bottom rectangle essentially need to rotate. So this bottom one needs to rotate up 45 or 46 degrees, and the top one needs to rotate down 45, 46 degrees. And then the middle thing, we want it to go away. We want to hide it. So the first thing we want to do is down here in the modifiers for this VStack, I am going to say on tap gesture. So when we tap it, we want something to happen. And with an animation, we want something to happen. And essentially, we are going to introduce 2 state properties up here, one for the rotation and one for the hidden state. So we'll say state var is rotating, and we'll see if I can spell things correctly today. And it's going to be false, and this one is going to be is hidden, just like so. And when we tap on this VStack, we're just going to toggle both of these. So we're going to say toggle this guy and toggle this guy. Just hit Command B to make sure I don't have any silly typos. And when we tap on this, nothing should happen yet. We are toggling the 2 states, but obviously we're not using them in our view yet. So let's actually go ahead and do that. So the first thing we're going to do here on the top and bottom rectangles is introduce a rotation effect. And we're going to say if it is rotating, or should be rotated, I guess, but oh well. If it's rotating, we're going to say do a rotation of perhaps like 48, otherwise it'll be 0. And we're going to say anchor this to leading. So essentially anchor the rotation, the center point to the left-hand side, so the right-hand side will actually rotate. And let's see why this is yelling at me here. So it looks like this is int, so results type of this and this. Expression have mismatching types int and int. Okay, that's kind of strange. Maybe this takes a float. Let me just double check. Alrighty, so this guy expects a angle actually. Okay, so let me see how we can create an angle. So we'll say angle here, and then we'll take degrees of 48 instead of just the integer. All right, so let's go ahead and change this one as well. Here we'll say degrees of 0, just like that, and we shouldn't see that error hopefully anymore. All right, beautiful, looking good. And then similarly, we can just copy and paste this and stick it down here. And the only difference is instead of rotating 48, we're just gonna make this negative, so we rotate in the opposite direction. So go ahead and hit Command B, and let's get our preview to be live here. Let's click this and see what happens. All right, so we're in pretty good shape. We got our rotation going on. We don't have 2 things yet that we can clean up. A, we need this middle thing to go away. And B, we kind of want this animation to be a little more springy, a little more lively, right? Right now it just kind of moves, and it certainly looks nice, but we can make it better. So let's focus on this middle thing first. So we want a scale effect on here, and we are going to, let me just look at this. All right, this takes a CG size. So let's see. I think there is another one that we want. So we have a scale effect here. We can pass in an X, Y, as well as a anchor point. And similar here, we can pass in a scale X, Y, and anchor. But let's do X and Y and let's see how that looks. So we'll say scale effect here, and with a X and a Y, we want the X, Y, as well as the anchor point. Pro tip, if you want to include all of the arguments here, you can just abbreviate it and Xcode will do its job. So inside of here, we are going to say 1, 1, and we are going to say leading here. And because we have the hidden state up above, we can say if this is hidden, we want it to be 0, otherwise we'll use 1. And similarly, we'll toss that down here as well. And we also want opacity to change when the animation occurs. So here we're going to say that the opacity is going to be, if it is hidden, will be 0, otherwise it will be 1. So let's go ahead and just build and get our live preview updated here. And let's see what this looks like. So we'll go ahead and click on this, and all right, we're in better shape. We don't see that, middle rectangle when we click on it. So looking pretty solid. Let's do one more thing to make this even nicer, and then we'll wrap it up here. So with our animation down here, we can actually tell it to animate with some arguments. So here you can specify an animation as well as a body. So here I'm going to say with animation, let me just type out the whole thing. And we can specify something in here. We'll stick this back in here. And what I believe I am looking for, let's make sure we use the proper casing here, is there is a interpolating spring animation. So we want to do it with a stiffness and a damping, and we actually don't need a mass, but we are going to say a stiffness of 300 and a damping of 15. Now these numbers or these properties or arguments, I should say, are well defined on Apple's website. They're a little convoluted for myself to explain, but what I suggest is play with these numbers and see how you feel, and you'll see the actual effect pretty immediately. So if we click on this, you'll see the animation kind of bounces. It's a little hard to explain, but it basically has a spring to it now. So it's almost like the X, right? The two top and bottom rectangles moved across each other, but they kind of bounce towards the end of that animation. And we can of course chain more animations together to have it ease in, ease out, but that's essentially how this looks. And just to make it a little bigger, we're just gonna add 100 to each of these, just so we can see it a little bit better. It'll be nice and big. All right, look at that. We got our obnoxiously large rectangles here, and actually they're a little too tall, so let me actually decrease that. Let's do 60, and let's see what that looks like. All right, 60 is probably good. Let me copy and paste this here, and also do here as well. And let's look at that animation one last time, and then we'll wrap it up. So there we have our cross. Okay, it looks totally off because I screwed up the numbers, but I digress. That's how you create a pretty nice icon animation in SwiftUI without any external assets, without a lot of code, and it's pretty cool. So that's all I've got for you guys today. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like down below. We just hit 75K subs, so huge thanks to everyone who supports the channel. On our way to 100,000 with that blue check mark and a YouTube play button. So do share the channel with anyone that is interested in iOS, Swift, SwiftUI. Connect on LinkedIn, follow on Twitter, even though we'll see how Elon takes care of Twitter now that he owns it. But that all said, thanks for watching. I will catch you on the next one.